The Terracotta Warriors are our next piece, and they are from the mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor of China. That's spelled Qin, but the pronunciation is Americanized as Qin, where we get the term China. The dates for the mausoleum are from 221 to 209 BCE. The materials of the warriors are going to be painted terracotta. Now, we've seen terracotta before with the sarcophagus of the spouses, and we know that large-scale firing of terracotta pieces is very intricate and a very difficult system. So the huge mound that we're going to be talking about that was found in this Shaanxi province in northern China is really important. It was unearthed in 1974 by accident. They were peasants digging a well, and they accidentally found evidence of the greatest archaeological discovery of modern times. Moving to the next slide, we could see views from the inside of the museum. If you were to go and see if you were to go to China and would like to see these in person, up here we can see the sketch plan of the mausoleum of the Emperor Qin, and mostly that we're seeing is the side of the mausoleum is within these two pieces right here. Where the emperor's body is buried is not readily available, and there is still much to the site that has not been excavated. So near the unexcavated tomb of the emperor, he's just a little bit about him. He's responsible for the unification of China into an empire. And his legacy is going to be very significant because it leads to a centralized bureaucratic state that lasted largely for 2,000 years. Now, the excavation reveals a large complex with an entire army of warriors that are life-size, some as tall as 6'4". They have the number over 7,000 of these warriors that are within this mausoleum. They have also found horses, chariots, bronze ritual vessels, jade, jewelry, and gold. And over the last 40 years, archaeologists have located 600 pits and a very complex underground vault, and that not all has been excavated. Now, the warriors in particular have very distinct individual features. But their bodies, because of the sheer numbers, suggest that the bodies were mass produced. And then the heads were given individual features. Their heads range in ages and also range in different types of facial features, including mustaches, beards, different coloring, and that also have different types of hairstyles, which suggests that they use molds, which is easier to do with terracotta materials. Their shoes are also different in each of the different types of warriors that we see. Now, the difference in the soldiers is the fact that they're not considered individual portraits, but they're supposed to represent a variety and show the ethnic diversity of the people of the Empire of China. The life-size soldiers are made of terracotta, each one an individual portrait reflecting the diversity of the men that are drawn across the Qin Empire. As we can see in this piece here, the soldiers would have been brightly painted. Body parts were mass-produced from a variety of molds, and then the heads and the limbs may have been added separately before the firing. Soldiers carried real weapons, including swords, spears, and halberds. The pits also included chariots, which is on this slide. We could see chariots here, also attached to the terracotta horses. And it was considered the most massive undertaking and certainly the largest ceramic project that we have found anywhere in the world. Going back to this piece here, you can see that not only were they see all the different likenesses of their faces here, different ages, different hairstyles. There's the mustache. But here we can also see the different type of weapons that the soldiers may or may not have held, including arrows and swords and spears. And this piece right here shows some of the armor that they would have been wearing. The first emperor is also known for his innovation in order to consolidate his rule, and he did that through the modernization of standardizing its currency, weights and measures. They built roads and canals that connected the city. He is also known for continuing the Great Wall of China. Now, the building of this grand tomb reflects and reveals the fascination the first Qin emperor had with the afterlife, and really the desire to extend his life on earth. The warriors, weapons, and horses were there meant to protect him after his death. It was to be a subterranean life that mirrored his mortal world. Aside from wanting to have protection in the afterlife, there have been reports that show that he was obsessed with finding a magic elixir to prolong his life. And within the excavations, archaeologists have found very high levels of mercury, a very poisonous substance that coursed through an intricate system of underground troughs. This was done through replicating the topography of the rivers, seas, and carving the landscape. Historians suggest that the emperor believed that mercury had a life-giving power, and so he surrounded himself with it. The construction of this complex took a very long time. It began when he was 13 and he died at 49. He is considered a military genius. He was a ruthless warrior, which allowed for the unification. And also he had this obsession with having warriors around him to protect him. So in order to achieve his immortality, he built himself a tomb, this vast underground city that was guarded by the life-size terracotta army. But not only was those found, but some of the other things we have seen unearthed are gardens and stables, bronze ritual vessels, jade jewelry, and a wealth of gold and silver ornaments. This is a significant site because it reveals much about the ancient way of life in China. The physical construction of this underground complex and the methodical production of the figures reveals a set of themes which we can gain a window of insight into the first Chinese emperor's worldview and really his enduring influence. Other things that we can say about this is that the first emperor lined his burial complex with treasury of riches, with precious gemstones that were meant to represent the stars, sun, and moon. He was deeply concerned with the universe and looked to the cosmos as a guide for crossing over to an immortal existence. He didn't just focus on the military aspect and protection, but he also included acrobats, which we can see in this piece here that were included. He also had musicians and exotic animals that were meant for the emperor's afterlife and entertainment. Other highlights in this mausoleum include the life-size horses that were painted a vivid purple, teal, and the red, and the terracotta army wore. A portrait of Emperor Qin and a beautiful life-size replica of the chariot being pulled by horses also included in this piece are coins. There's round coins with square holes that were found, and that became that standardized form of Chinese currency for the next 2,000 years. So the function of this piece was to be a burial or a funeral place for the first emperor of China. It was reflection of how he felt about what was going to happen in the next life and how he needed to be protected, and a way to replicate what his life was like on while his time on earth. He With this piece, you can really relate this to, in a way, the Egyptian view of the afterlife, in regards to wanting to make sure that they had everything that they needed for the afterlife.